Throughout comic book history, we've seen a ton of different rivalries between superheroes and supervillains. Batman and the Joker, Iron Man and the Mandarin, Dr. Doom and a bunch of squirrels, but easily one of the most iconic is the one between Spider-Man and his boss, J Jonah Jameson.
I hate sweet! I need photos! Photos of Spider-Man!
Okay, so maybe Jolly Jonah isn't exactly a supervillain, but I think we can all agree that the dude is definitely an asshole, no matter what version of the character we're introduced to. I mean, he bashes Spidey all the time in the press, and personally funded the creation of multiple Spider-Man adversaries, including the Scorpion, the Human Fly, and different models of the Spider Slayer robots. And every single time we've heard the Hitler mustachioed menace screaming some nonsense about Spider-Man over the airwaves.
We've always assumed Spider-Man is a man with the attributes of a spider. But what if it's the reverse? What if somehow a spider gained the powers of a man and he's stalking his prey? Somewhere there's a giant web with these poor pigeons stuck in it, waiting to be devoured. And will it stop at pigeons? Will we be next?
Or run some kind of libelous front page story in the Daily Bugle.
Spider-Man, hero or menace? Exclusive Daily Bugle photos.
Menace? He was protecting that armor.
I'll tell you what, Atticus, you take the pictures, I'll make up the headlines, okay? All right? That okay with you?
I bet it never occurred to you to ask, what exactly is it that makes Jonah hate the webhead so much? Seriously, it's such a weird thing to focus all your hate on, especially considering how Jonah actually likes other costumed heroes, like Captain America for example. So where did his problems with Spider-Man actually start? Well, funny enough, Jameson actually told everybody his reasons for hating Spider-Man in his very first appearance, all the way back in the pages of 1963's Amazing Spider-Man issue number 1. Pretty much right after Peter started making moves to be a major TV star, we see Jolly Jonah running stories in the Bugle and rambling on TV about how Spider-Man was a menace and was apparently worried that children were gonna copy the stuff he does. Oh, won't somebody think of the children, the poor children? I guess I missed the memo that explained how Spidey turned into the Human Torch all of a sudden. Here's a Spidey cookie if you got that reference. Either way, it seems weird that Peter's loudmouth, hard-ass boss would jump straight to the think of the children approach, but whatever. I'm pretty sure this wasn't meant to be the real reason anyway, because later in the same issue, after Spidey saved the life of John Jameson, Jonah's astronaut son, by helping the capsule he was flying land safely, Jonah immediately ran a story about how Spider-Man screwed up the mission somehow because he wanted all the glory or something that's been brought up in later depictions of the character over the years. Either way, the series makes an effort to dive into Jonah's reasoning a few issues later, in 1964's Amazing Spider-Man number 11. In that issue, we see Jonah thinking out loud about why he hates Spider-Man, revealing that he actually hates the web slinger because, get this, he's actually jealous of Spider-Man. Seriously, this guy was apparently, at one point in time, jealous because Spider-Man's a good person and he isn't. Okay. I mean, what? Seriously? This doesn't make sense on any level. Sure, I could maybe understand Jonah's reasoning here if he hated other heroes for being good people, but he's always heaping praise on his hero son, John Jameson.
Big party for an American hero. My son, the astronaut.
And like I said earlier, the grumpy publisher, and apparent millionaire, is a confirmed Captain America fanboy. What's the difference between either one of those guys and Spider-Man? Plus, even if this excuse was consistent, it's not exactly like he does anything to improve on himself after that revelation. If anything, he just sort of doubles down and makes things worse for everybody. Did I mention he wasted taxpayer dollars making an anti-Spidey squad after he was elected mayor? Thankfully, this was actually somewhat changed a few decades later in the pages of 1991's Spectacular Spider-Man number 175. In that issue, we see Peter talking to Mary Jane about why Jonah hates him so much, with MJ theorizing that Jameson only hates Spider-Man because he has a black and white sense of right and wrong, and it drives him nuts that people like Spider-Man not only work outside the law, but actually get away with it time and time again. Now that's fine and all, I mean I could see this being a thing, since Jonah's always running his mouth about a variety of superheroes pretty much every time we see him.
Tomorrow's headline is Captain America Benedict Arnold.
Is he always like this?
But at the same time, like I said earlier, he does respect certain superheroes, pretty much ignores other, more violent vigilantes, arguably more deserving of being called out in his paper in favor of focusing 24/7 on a guy who dresses up like a spider. And there was that one time he started praising Spider-Man immediately after he thought his son John was the guy under the mask. So yeah, if this dude's that willing to ignore or otherwise completely toss out his morals the second he thinks one of his own is a superhero, I'm pretty sure we can forget about this explanation. Thankfully though, we actually got a much better explanation in 2003's Spider-Man's Tangled Web number 20, where we see how Jameson was abused by his war hero stepfather, making Jameson wary of anybody who claimed to be a hero, especially the ones who wore masks. Huh, that one actually kind of makes sense. I mean, seriously, if you kept getting treated like shit by somebody everybody said was a hero, wouldn't you be a little distrusting of anybody people said were heroes? Kind of puts all those pranks Spidey pulls on Jameson in a whole new light, doesn't it? Now, even though we do get to see Jameson in a bunch of adaptations of the Spider-Man story, his reasoning for hating the wall crawler isn't really explored all that well, either kinda sorta being brought up or ignored completely.
He pulled 6 people off that subway car.
Sure, from a wreck he probably caused. Something goes wrong and this creepy crawler is there. Look at that. He's fleeing the scene. What's that tell you?
For example, in the Spectacular Spider-Man show, Jameson initially just wanted to screw with Spidey, with the idea that stories about him failing would boost his paper sales.
But the one thing they love more than a hero is to see a hero fail, fall, die trying.
Of course, we later saw his motivation for hating Spider-Man gain new layers in the second season episode Growing Pains. In that episode, his son John develops superpowers and fights Spider-Man, only to go insane by the end of the episode when he's depowered. Jonah, heartbroken at the sight of his deranged son, winds up blaming Spider-Man for his condition.
This is all Spider-Man's fault! He destroyed my son!
Now, Jonah's definitely an ass, but to be fair, he's not exactly wrong in this case.
Doc Connors said electricity only had limited success destroying the spores. But maybe the problem was limited electricity. I just need to lure him to the nearest major source of juice.
After the cancellation of Spectacular Spider-Man, we got the Ultimate Spider-Man series.
Oh, that sucks.
I'm not entirely sure if they ever gave Jonah a good reason for hating Spider-Man in that show. They always just seem to have him rant about pretty much anything. All that having been said, you'd think anything but the comics just didn't care all that much to cover Jonah's seemingly insane hatred for Spider-Man, but we actually did get a pretty decent rationalization for it in the 1990s TV series. In the second episode, titled The Sting of the Scorpion, we see in a flashback that Jameson's wife was killed by somebody wearing a mask, leading to Jameson just not trusting anybody wearing a mask. Now, there are plenty of different versions of the character in a ton of different forms, and I'm sure I missed at least one writer's interpretation of Jameson's spider hatred, but at the same time, this list is probably close enough. I mean, there's really only so many times you can retell the same thing, you know? As for which version of Jameson's hatred is the right version, that's really up to you. Me personally, I feel like the 1990s cartoon was the first adaptation to get it right, and the comics didn't really get it right until just last year, in Peter Parker, The Spectacular Spider-Man, issue number 6. In that issue, Jameson mentions that he got mugged by somebody wearing a mask, and as a result, he doesn't really trust anybody in a mask anymore. Regardless of whichever version of the character you think has the right reasoning for hating Spider-Man though, at least we can all agree it's better than that time he got pissy because Spider-Man took his son's airtime in Amazing Fantasy number 18. But anyways guys, that's why Jameson hates Spider-Man. If you guys agreed with anything I said in this video, or you maybe accept a different version of why Jameson hates Spidey, then go ahead and let me know in the comments down below. Otherwise, I will see you all next time. Hey, thanks for watching. If you like this video, then go ahead and click that like button, and if you're new, maybe consider clicking that subscribe button too. I've also got links to my Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, and Patreon in the description. You should probably check those out too. And if you want to see more of my content, then you can click the link to my last video. It's right there in the middle of your screen. Alright, and I will see you all next time.